Hi there. So on the last page, we were just talking about William Perry, and one of the things that I wrote there was that who we think we are very much depends on how close we think we are to the truth. William Perry, again, was a developmental psychologist working in the 1900s, and his trajectory took him to really studying college students. And so this question of who we think we are depending on really how close we think we are to the truth um, could be taken this way for him. How does a student's development manifest in how they think about the truth? Or how does your approach to opinions show me something about your development? So as we'll see in a minute, he's got 4 positions with a few sub-positions for a total of 9 positions, or 4 stages, I guess, with a few sub-positions, and there's 9 total positions. I want you to know the 4 big ones: dualism, multiplism, relativism, and commitment, which we'll talk about here in a minute. Basically, in a nutshell, the trajectory that we're looking at is a student who comes into the college environment as a traditionally aged freshman at like age 18, comes in with the understanding, and this is not everybody, and the age is not necessarily wed to the stage, and sometimes these different stages are experienced in different ways by different people, and we kind of go through them and go back, and it doesn't have to be exact, but the trajectory is interesting. So we start in a position with William Perry of thinking generally that opinions are worthless and what counts are facts. What has been proven true is what is worth learning, and this is most of your elementary, high school education has been learning the facts, things that our society has already established as proven. And this sense of truth is that the truth is something I can pick up, right? I can receive the names of the 50 states. I can receive all of the elements in the periodic table. I can receive all the theorems in geometry. These are little packages that you almost can pick up and touch, and you can get them from a teacher if they're a good teacher. And in college, we move from or develop from being a person who thinks about the truth that way and who has shunned opinions in a certain way, to moving beyond that, to thinking facts are good. Nobody's knocking that in this class, right? Facts are good, but some things that can't be proven are definitely worth considering. And indeed, as a human being, I'm going to have to decide how I think about them to live a full human life. I start to understand that there are better arguments and that there are worse arguments that I need to listen to. And what criteria do I use to determine if an argument is a good argument or a bad argument? Is it entirely that somebody who seems to have the right credentials is able to give a good argument? Is it entirely that somebody who has had the experiences gets to give the good argument? Like, what makes an argument good or bad? These are questions that become more central in the college years. And the shape of truth changes. They're no longer these little parcels, these little packages that you get to hold. You start to understand, and this is what Mill is really trying to get us to understand, that the truth is not a noun, it's a verb, it's an activity. Truth happens, it doesn't get received. Truth happens in the discussing and the defending of various opinions. It's an activity I engage in when I discuss my true opinions with others. So if you'll take out from your document packet for this lesson some comics. Comic number 1 is from the Peanuts, and this compilation of comics, you'll note at the bottom of the document that these come from a professor named William Rappaport, who has put these together, and I just thought he did a really nice job when I witnessed this presentation. So all credit goes to him for collecting these so well. Charlie Brown's in bed says, "Sometimes I lay awake at night and I ask, is life a multiple choice test or is it a true or false test?" And then a voice comes out to me from the dark and says, "We hate to tell you this, but life is a 1,000-word essay," right? This is where we see the development of thinking of truth in terms of some really black and white concrete facts to thinking about the truth in terms of an opinion that needs to be to be supported with 1,000 words. I have here for you an opinion piece a letter to the editor from the New York Times from a while ago now. This is August 2002. To the editor regarding an essay or an article that had run earlier. Whither college lectures, maybe right out the door. And this young man, David Klass, writes, I am an undergraduate at Cornell University. Every lecture course I have taken, no matter how bad or boring, has taught me more than any of my seminar courses, no matter how good or interesting. In a lecture, you get taught by an expert. That's me, I'm the expert. Which means the information received is relevant and credible. But in a seminar, most of the information received is from other students like yourself, which leads to discussion that is mostly irrelevant and also largely suspect in accuracy. Additionally, professors don't like to tell students directly that they are wrong, but then again do not say if they are correct. So one can leave a seminar completely confused and not knowing any more than when one entered. One can, of course, leave a lecture confused as well, but there are always office hours. I feel that if I have to pay the absurd amount that colleges charge for tuition, amen to that, I should at least be taught by someone who knows his or her, Mr. Klass, stuff. And what I take from this is a young man who is very much thinking about truth as something that can be purely received from lecture, right? And his abhorrence of the seminar format in which discussion prevails suggests that he's very uncomfortable with a relationship with truth that is very different from one of ownership. I have here a little example for you. Mr. David Klass, I think, is thinking about truth in terms of black and white, right? He thinks that it can be clearly discerned from falsity. Truth and falsity are just like black and white. But what you find as you become more educated is that what separates black from white and a lot of what you have to think about is actually just the contrast, right? So this one, I'll hold both of them up. This one is actually black and white, according to my computer. And this one down here, which I showed you first, is actually gray and grayer, right? But it looks like black and white from the get-go when you haven't had a chance to understand that there's a lot of gradation, that there could be the possibility of gradation. And that discovery is usually what happens in the college years, intellectually and ethically, is the realization that truth is not as clear-cut as I used to think, because I'd been taught to just see the world in terms of contrast and hadn't yet realized just quite how much gradation there can be. So Perry's question is really, how does a student move from demanding that truth be about facts versus opinions, very clear-cut, about black versus white, to understanding that truth is sometimes more about true opinions that are supported by arguments, that it's about context and gradation. So let's take a look now at William Perry's 9 positions. Again, I really want you to know these, the 4 big positions: dualism, multiplism, and relativism and commitment. Dualism speaks very well about these black and white contrasts here. All questions have answers. The teacher's job is to teach the answers. The student's job is to learn the answers. This culminates in a real insistence that there is simply true and not true. This gives way to multiplism. And the shift here that happens is the realization that while all questions have answers, maybe some teachers don't know the answers or are just trying to obfuscate, oh dear, I can't say that word, the answers, make things less clear than they actually are. And late multiplism, as you see here, most questions don't have answers, and the teacher, or known answers, and the teacher isn't really relevant, and all opinions are valid. And you can just BS your way through whatever you want because any opinion is worthwhile. And this is an important shift, right? It's important to start to understand that there is a worth to opinions, but I also can't stand that all opinions are equally valid. That's crazy. So then we get into relativism, and this is a really productive place to have a student because they start to realize how much context is important to teasing out the truth of a given opinion. So discipline-specific reasoning methods become really important, understanding that The environment in which you're in really needs to have a say in the way you present your opinion. And this shifts towards the end here in late stage relativism, pre-commitment relativism. The student begins to see the necessity of making choices and committing to a solution. So at the beginning of relativism, you're starting to understand that this can be true, and this can be true, and this can be true, and there's all these different ways of seeing the truth. And then you start to realize, and I have to pick a place to stand. I have to pick a place to stand where I can say, this is what seems true to me. And that's where you get in commitment. So the second scheme here, moving from seeing truth as being black and white and absolute at the very beginning, to getting to a place where you start to make commitments to your life's direction and the values that you have. And ultimately, I'll let you read through the rest of this one by yourself. But position 9, this is how life is going to be. I must be wholehearted while tentative. I have to fight for my values and yet respect others' values. I have to believe my deepest values to be true while still trying to be open to learn others' truths. I see that I will be retracing this entire process over and over, but hopefully with greater facility and less anxiety every time. So do take the time to read through that entire document. I won't do it for you right now, partly because it's late for me. All right, couple more comics to help really bring these points home, because who doesn't love a couple more comics, right? Go to comic number 2, good old Calvin and Hobbes. Calvin says, "Oh good, a true or false test. At last, some clarity. Every sentence is either pure, sweet truth or a vile, contemptible lie. One or the other, nothing in between." And so what does he do? He flips a coin, right? So that I take this one, and so does Professor Rappaport, to really illustrate a dualistic way of thinking, right? It's either truth, pure and sweet, or it's falsity. And he's not sure, so he's going to flip a coin. So I guess giving way to multiplism. And then the next one by a cartoonist named B. Smaller. Little boy up there with 2 + 2 = 5 says, maybe it's not a wrong answer, maybe it's just a different answer. And so here indicating that opinions, we might have different opinions and they're all valid, right? That's the characteristic of multiplism. The next, for better or for worse. Look, Mike, there's no way you're going to get perfect on this stuff, okay? So stop beating yourself up. I mean, most of the exams are essays, right? It's not like math where the answer is either right or wrong. Essays are evaluated by people who either like what you write or they don't. In this case, we are at the mercy of the educators. We are at the mercy of their egos, their prejudices, their narrow-minded adherence to the past. Each of these being different kinds of contexts that might make what you say true or not true. And this character here is recognizing the relativity of the essay given these various different contexts. And his friend says, so if you flunk this exam, it's not my fault, he says. It's the context's fault, not my fault. And that's the big shift that happens before commitment, is that you realize it is your fault, right? That you need to pick a place to stand, a context that you think your truths make sense in, and you have to speak them and own them. So late stage relativism, contextual relativism is the next one. Calvin and Hobbes, yep, one more time, because Calvin and Hobbes is so much fun, right? Oh no, everything has suddenly turned neo-cubist, he says. It all started when Calvin engaged his dad in a minor debate. Soon Calvin could see both sides of the issue, and then poor Calvin began to see both sides of everything. The traditional single viewpoint has been abandoned. Perspective has been fractured. The multiple views provide too much information. It's impossible to move. Calvin quickly tries to eliminate all but one perspective. It works. The world falls into a recognizable order. And then he goes to his dad and says, you're still wrong, Dad. So this really representing this idea that in that third stage that you do start to see things from different perspectives. And it can be really scary to realize that things are true from different perspectives. All right, and then the last one, a shoe comic. Find the square root of 225. And he says, I didn't know it was missing. Math is such a drag. Every question has a precise, exact answer. What good is that? Real life isn't precise. Math is all black or white, right or wrong. There aren't any precise answers in real life, just a series of gray areas. And to deal with the gray areas in life, you have to be flexible. You have to be able to roll with the punches and know how to wing it. Good grief, I think life is an essay question. And we will hope that he will go on to write an essay about what things look like from where he stands, right? What he has committed to and what that commitment looks like. So I hope you enjoyed those comics. They're pretty fun. What we have left for us to do here is to talk a little bit more about what Mill means when he is engaging us in thinking of the truth not as a package that I give you, as much as I would like to, but rather as a process in which you have to engage that involves trying to sort out opinions, just mere opinions, from the false opinions and the true opinions, right? Like trying to understand which opinions are better than others. Because here's the thing, not all opinions are the same, right? And we'll look at a piece that really makes a case for that. Thanks for listening.